Hey, what's up guys? This is Nick from Nick Expose. On this episode of 2 Minute Tuesday, we have two things. First of all, it's the very last episode of 2 Minute Tuesday before I go into like the rebrand structure of bringing it out as its next iteration, probably a month from now. But then two is I want to talk about a topic that I actually started sharing a little bit about when I did a all format takeover. So if you didn't know, I'm part of a photography collective over on Instagram called All Format Collective. You should go check them out right now if you're not following them already. But I think it was last weekend I actually did a takeover to where I started sharing some thoughts that I've been mulling over for quite some time now, and I think it's time to actually make a video on this very particular thing. So without further ado, let's jump into it and see what you guys think about this topic. So if you've been in photography for any length of time, you've probably heard that it's important that you establish a creative voice, a creative identity, right? An artistic identity. And we start to really kind of hone in on that. I know when I started into photography back in like 2010, 2011, as I kind of walked on my journey of photography, I started hearing it over and over and over again. If you're going to become anything proficient within photography, you need to establish a creative identity, a brand, a vision, a look, whatever. It's said in so many different ways, but I started looking at the different aesthetics of my shots and started going, oh man, you know, it's kind of all over the board, or even I'm shooting things all over the board. Last 2 Minute Tuesday, we actually talked about, you know, the creative paradox and being able to break out of the absolute structures that we place on our life and on our creativity, and allowing ourselves to really go with the flow of whatever our creative process is calling for at the moment. And I think that this kind of expands on that topic to where when we start looking at the aesthetics, because this is what oftentimes we deem to be the creative voice, the creative vision, the creative thumbprint, if you will, we start looking at the aesthetics. We start looking at, am I shooting black and white? If I am shooting black and white, where are my contrast points at? And we start to think of creative aesthetic and our creative voice as somewhat of a preset. Even if we shoot film, it's kind of like, oh, I know I'm going to shoot HP5. And again, I'm not trying to say that these are bad things, but I'm just saying specifically in this video that I truly believe that our creative aesthetic and even our visual draw, the things that we find interesting, kind of go beyond just the aesthetics. It goes beyond just the idea of whether our black points, you know, crush out, whether our highlights, you know, peak out, all these different things. And it actually goes much, much deeper than that. The thing that I want to really talk about today is I would kind of call it our creative pedigree, for lack of better terminology. The way that I was sharing this on the all format takeover was, as I've been thinking over the last couple of years about my photography, about my creative expression, about the things that I tend to express over and over and over again, about the ways that my aesthetic kind of falls into place over and over and over again, I actually started breaking it down to different influencing factors from my past. Everything from childhood to now, I feel like there's a lot of distinctive characteristics that really show out from other hobbies and interests, from other lines of work. I was a graphic designer for 9 years professionally before I became a photographer. And as I look at my work, I could definitely see where the archetype of graphic design is really laid in there. We've talked about it in the past a couple times to where I like building shapes and structures, and I like kind of figuring out geometric patterns within that would really work well as a background and a backdrop to the overlay of text and type and content, and I'm still building graphic compositions despite using a camera versus using InDesign, ProPresenter, you know, all these different things that I've used. So there's that in there. But then I also think about my magic. I kind of shared a little bit in the all format takeover, but I used to be a magician. I used to do sleight of hand magic, and I would do street magic on the streets of on the sidewalks of the college campuses here in Michigan, and I enjoyed doing that for years. Did some small gigs. I was never like a big stage magician or anything like that, but I enjoyed the close-up intimacy of magic. And then, you know, understanding the way that you have to structure a trick, and understanding the way that you have to build for lack of better terminology, a composition and storyline to be able to lead a viewer, to be able to misdirect when you need to misdirect, to build tension, to release tension. All these different things comes into play when I'm sequencing work. It also comes into play with a lot of my surreal work that I shoot. I'll put up some examples here to where in my mind, I'm still chasing after the mystery and the wonder of surrealism, right? Building a reality that isn't necessarily reality. Building a reality that has links to regular reality, but brings it into the surreal. And there's all sorts of different examples like this from my past and in cars and you know my work in the ministry and all these different things build the pedigree of what my creative aesthetic is. You know, I used to draw as a kid, drawing all the time. That was actually my first art form that I really dove into. I wasn't much for Legos and building blocks and all that kind of stuff, but I absolutely loved to draw. And now I look at the grain that I have and that I love in my work, and then the black and white that I'm working with, and it's just kind of these elements of drawing. And as I'm looking at my prints, I'm seeing just, you know, back when I used to draw over, you know, watercolor paper and the way that the graphite would just skip across the surface and make these distinct patterns. But anyways, you know, all this stuff starts to play into why it is that I gravitate towards the things that I gravitate towards. And instead of looking at all of the photographers that have developed their creative vision, that have cemented their creative aesthetic in trying to go, okay, what do I want from them and what do I not want from them? Again, that's not bad. But actually, when I started releasing myself from trying to find creative aesthetic by studying other people's work and started actually embracing the things in my life, the highs, the lows, you know, the different areas of my life that I've experienced. We have different stories in our life that nobody else has ever experienced. And that plays into our creative aesthetic. That plays into the creative vision that we have when we start offering projects over to other people. I hope that this really kind of makes sense, and I really want to challenge you to start looking into your past, looking into other creative hobbies, other hobbies in general. If you like cooking, how does that play into, you know, making a zine? I don't know, whatever it might look like, but start looking at the different things. If you've been in sports in the past, how is that affecting the way that your eye is drawn towards things, the way that your creative vision is drawn towards things when editing, when printing? Not everyone's going to edit and print the same way that I do. But I do it the way that I do because I've built up a visual draw, right? A creative bias because of all the things that I've experienced in the past. So I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts on this. I would love for you to leave your comments down below. We're not going to be able to do a live stream today. I'm actually traveling this week. So as you're seeing this, I'll be out in Missouri helping to lead a conference that our church network is doing out there. So I'll be out there. I'd love to hear your comments down below though, and I'll be intentional throughout the week on trying to get down there and responding back to you guys' understanding on this too. And do you agree with this? As you're looking through the previous sections of your life, do you see where different things have come in and influenced your creative vision? So I really, really look forward to this conversation. And then also, like I said, this will be the last 2 Minute Tuesday. The TMT series is dead. It's not dead. It lives on in its former version. So go check out some of the old 2 Minute Tuesday episodes. But then over the next month, I'm going to be rebranding this whole thing and coming out with a whole new vision and idea for where this thing could go. And I think it's going to be an amazing, amazing thing. So a huge shout out to all of our Patreon crowd. So over at patreon.com/NickExposed, we have a micro community over there, and I'm working through getting back into the schedule of everything. So I'm going to start posting stuff back over there, and I do kind of use it as a little bit of a blog for me, to where I can kind of share some thoughts as I'm wrestling through them with these guys and get to hear their thoughts on the stuff too. They also get behind the scenes access on different things, and I'm really looking forward to vamping that back up and sharing a lot more behind the scenes stuff. I'm going to be in the dark room soon, going to share some stuff like that over there. So thank you to all of our patrons. These are guys that support the channel every single week, every single month, and help me make these videos and help it be a viable means of just living these aren't cheap. These aren't, free. I invest a lot of time into these things, and the Patreon crowd has really partnered with me and say, hey, we value the stuff that you're putting out there, and we've enjoyed it, and we want you to keep doing it. So thank you guys. A special shout out to all of our executive producers who are going above and beyond and just helping to support the channel at a higher level. So thank you guys. I love you guys. I will see you guys on the next video, and I look forward to getting back into the live streams on the future iteration of whatever this becomes. But then also I'll be doing some live streams in between now and then, and we can discuss this topic then. But I look forward to reading your comments down below now. So until then, go and push yourselves 2 stops. Peace.